In the summer of 2025, the world stood at the edge of a major regional conflict. A single midnight air raid temporarily halted the synthesis of an Iranian nuclear weapon, but the timeline leading to that strike began months earlier. In February of that year, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu arrived in Washington bearing urgent intelligence. This graph illustrates the data he delivered. It charts Iran's stockpile of uranium enriched to 60% purity, just below weapons grade. Over a span of mere months, that stockpile took a vertical climb, growing by nearly 50%. For President Trump, these numbers forced a severe policy dilemma. The administration faced mounting pressure to launch a preemptive military strike before Iran could synthesize a functional nuclear core. The window for a negotiated settlement had formally closed. The United States was cornered into a binary choice: accept an Iranian nuclear weapon or risk a massive regional war to dismantle the program. Years of prior interventions had fallen short. The 2015 nuclear deal had dissolved, and the subsequent maximum pressure campaign of economic sanctions failed to halt Tehran's enrichment cycle. The breaking point arrived in May 2025. The International Atomic Energy Agency officially reported that Iran was actively hiding the development of its nuclear materials. Instead of backing down from the ensuing IAEA censure, Iran announced its intention to construct an entirely new, undisclosed uranium enrichment facility. International diplomatic levers and economic strangulation had run their course. Halting the nuclear program now required physical destruction. The primary target was the Fordo uranium enrichment plant. This facility was entrenched roughly 90 meters deep inside the bedrock of an Iranian mountain. Breaching it required highly specialized science. For 15 years, the U.S. Defense Threat Reduction Agency had been covertly mapping this specific mountain, searching for structural weaknesses in the rock. To understand how to crack the bedrock, the agency ran thousands of impact simulations. They consumed more U.S. supercomputer time than any other government project just to model the required penetration depth. The solution they developed was the GBU-57 Massive Ordnance Penetrator. Weighing 30,000 pounds, this bunker buster had never seen active combat. Its specialized fuses survived the initial mountain impact, programmed to detonate only after carving through dozens of meters of solid stone. The order to attack drew entirely on a decade and a half of obsessive, highly classified military engineering. On the night of June 22, 2025, the U.S. military launched Operation Midnight Hammer, mobilizing a coordinated fleet of over 125 aircraft. The opening salvo came from the sea. U.S. submarines fired dozens of Tomahawk cruise missiles to systematically blind Iran's air defense networks. By destroying these early warning systems, the Navy successfully cleared a safe, undetected corridor directly through Iranian airspace. 7 B-2 stealth bombers slipped through that corridor. They dropped 14 of the massive bunker busters directly onto the facilities at Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. Post-strike assessments confirmed severe structural devastation across all three highly fortified nuclear sites. Intelligence concluded the strikes halted Iran's immediate enrichment capacity, setting their nuclear ambitions back by 2 years. This demonstrated that their deepest subterranean infrastructure was no longer a sanctuary. In the immediate hours following the raid, global markets braced for an energy crisis, expecting a sharp spike in oil prices. This chart tracking Brent crude shows the exact opposite happened. Instead of surging, oil prices experienced a steep drop below $70 a barrel on June 23 and 24. The market stabilized because rapid diplomatic backchannels succeeded in keeping the critical Strait of Hormuz open and commercial shipping lanes secure. While energy markets remained calm, the geopolitical reaction fractured. Western allies quietly approved the intervention, while Russia, China, and regional neighbors condemned the raid as an act of aggression. Stable gas prices and the lack of an immediate, catastrophic Iranian counterattack created a dangerous illusion that the crisis had been cleanly resolved. Tehran's military response came quickly, but was highly targeted. They launched a retaliatory strike against the U.S. airbase at Al Udeid in Qatar. To lock in the tactical victory and prevent a broader regional spiral, President Trump immediately announced a ceasefire between Iran and Israel. Under the cover of this diplomatic pause, Iran officially suspended all cooperation with the IAEA and aggressively accelerated the reconstruction of its nuclear infrastructure. The months of quiet that followed were not the end of hostilities, but the gathering of a much larger storm. Operation Midnight Hammer dismantled the physical infrastructure of the nuclear program, but the resulting collapse of international oversight and the direct attack on a U.S. base moved both nations onto a collision course that would peak 1 year later.